It began, as so many things do, innocently enough. A small gathering, huddled against the encroaching gloom in the forgotten library wing of Gallows Hill Manor. David, Eleanor, Thomas, and Sarah. Our purpose: simple morbid curiosity, a shared fascination with the macabre. We called it our reading circle, meeting weekly amidst the scent of decay and the silent weight of forgotten knowledge, poring over dusty volumes and brew manuscripts found tucked away in locked cabinets and behind false panels. We sought thrills and printed terror in the gothic nightmares and spectral warnings penned by hands long turned to dust. At first, it was merely entertainment, a frisson of fear enjoyed from a safe distance, like watching a storm from behind reinforced glass. But then, David found the manuscript. It was a collection, bound crudely in faded leather, its pages thin and yellowed, filled with spidery, looping script that seemed almost too eager to leap from the page. Unlike the published tales, these felt personal. They spoke of entities that were not ghosts in the traditional sense, but presences woven from unspoken fear, drawn to the resonance of spoken words in isolated, vulnerable places. A listener in the dark. A presence that absorbed narratives, growing stronger with each tale recounted. David became captivated. He started arriving early, staying late, deciphering the crabbed text, his eyes taking on a feverish gleam. He spoke of recurring motives, of chilling consistencies across the disparate intrigues, as if the authors, separated by time and space, were all describing the same unseen horror. The air in the library began to shift. Subtle things at first. The temperature would drop without cause. Shadows seemed to deepen and within peripheral vision. A persistent, low hum would sometimes fill the silence after a particularly chilling passage was read aloud. Eleanor dismissed it as the old house settling. Thomas joked about hypochondria. Sarah grew quiet and easy, but offered no concrete explanation. Only David seemed to notice the pattern, correlating the subtle disturbances with specific stories from the leather-bound manuscript. He claimed the words were not just stories, they were invitations. They were maps. He started experiencing things outside our meetings. Whispers in his empty apartment that mirrored phrases from the text. Figures glimpsed just around corners that vanished when he turned. The feeling of being watched became constant, a cold weight on his shoulders. He stopped sleeping, his focus solely on the manuscript, desperate to understand the rules, the entity's nature, perhaps even a way to appease it. He found passages that detailed the previous owners of the manor, their strange disappearances, their descent into madness after prolonged solitude within the house's walls, often preceded by an intense period of reading or writing. He found a final, desperate entry, barely legible, warning of the absorption, the state where the boundary between the reader and the narrative dissolves, and the listener claims its price. David's grip on reality frayed. The faces of Eleanor, Thomas, and Sarah began to seem distant, their voices muffled, as if they were characters in a different story entirely. The words from the manuscript were louder now, echoing in his mind, sometimes seeming to originate from the very walls of the library. During our final meeting, as David read aloud from the leather-bound volume, his voice trembling with a mix of terror and obsessive fervor, the true horror revealed itself. It wasn't a creature that burst forth, but the room itself began to warp, the dusty air thickening, the shadows detaching themselves to form indistinct, pressing shapes. The ink on the pages seemed to bleed and crawl, forming patterns that ripped and reformed on the floor, the walls. The whispers weren't just in his mind. They were physical, a cacophony of terrified voices echoing the stories David had been consuming. Eleanor screamed. Thomas stumbled back, Sarah buried her face in her hands, but the horror was focused. It converged on David, drawn by the magnetic pull of his obsession, by the portal his mind had opened through the power of the spoken word. The shapes closed in, not touching him, but pressing against him, merging with him. His scream was not of pain, but of utter, final understanding. He saw the others' faces fade, become flat, like illustrations. He felt himself becoming two-dimensional. The last thing anyone heard was the rustle of paper, followed by a silence that felt profound, complete. The library remained slightly askew, the air heavy. A leather-bound manuscript lay open on the table, its pages now blank. The spidery script vanished, empty. But somewhere, within the silent spaces between words, a new story was being written, and the listener was still hungry.